Right now, as you watch this video, a single economic shift is quietly costing American households hundreds of millions of dollars every single day. Not per month, not per year, every single day. And that number is accelerating faster than at any point in the last 4 decades. But here's the thing, that's not even the real problem. That's just the first signal, the first ripple before the wave. And most people, they're still standing on the beach, looking at their phone, completely unaware of what's moving toward them beneath the surface. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand something that 95% of people around you will not figure out until it's already cost them thousands of dollars, years of savings, and a level of financial security they may never fully recover. This is not a prediction. This is already happening, and the data is all there, hiding in plain sight. Let's start with what you can already see. You've noticed it at the grocery store. You've noticed it when you fill up your tank. You've noticed it when your rent renewed, when your insurance bill arrived, when you ordered something online and saw the shipping cost. Prices are up, way up, and not just on luxury items, on the basics: eggs, bread, ground beef, the stuff that was supposed to be immune to economic chaos because people always need it. The stuff that, as of right now, has seen price increases that are stripping real purchasing power from American families at a rate that hasn't been this severe since the stagflation crisis of the late 1970s. Now here's why most people underestimate this. They look at it and they say, okay, it's rough, but I'm managing. I adjusted my budget. I cut back on a few things. It's uncomfortable, but it's survivable. And on the surface, that logic feels correct. That's exactly what normalcy bias does to you. Your brain is wired, literally hardwired through evolution, to assume that the future will look mostly like the present. It's a cognitive shortcut that kept our ancestors alive. But in a rapidly shifting economic environment, that same shortcut becomes a financial liability. Because here's what normalcy bias tells you. This is probably the new normal. I'll adapt, things will stabilize. And here's what the data tells you. This is not the new normal. This is wave 1, and there are multiple waves coming, each one bigger than the last. Wave 1 is already here, and it's the one you've been living through: consumer price inflation on everyday goods. But what's critical to understand is that wave 1 was caused by a perfect collision of events: pandemic-era supply chain destruction, trillions in stimulus money flooding a constrained economy, and an energy market that got violently disrupted. The Fed raised interest rates aggressively to fight it, 11 rate hikes, and for a while it seemed like it was working. Inflation cooled from its peak, people exhaled, markets rallied, and the collective consciousness said, okay, the worst is behind us. That exhale was the mistake, because Wave 2 didn't announce itself. It never does. Wave 2 is what's happening right now in the credit markets, and this is where it starts to get quietly dangerous for everyday Americans. Here's the number that should make you stop scrolling. The average American household is now carrying over $10,000 in credit card debt, and the average interest rate on that debt just crossed 22%. 22%! That means someone carrying average credit card debt is paying over $2,000 a year just in interest, not paying down the balance, just servicing the debt. And as high-rate debt compounds, it doesn't grow linearly, it grows exponentially. Here's what nobody's talking about loudly enough. Delinquency rates on credit cards and auto loans have already started climbing back to levels we haven't seen since 2010 in the wake of the last financial crisis. That's not a prediction. That data is already being reported by the Federal Reserve. People are starting to crack under the weight of borrowed money that cost almost nothing 2 years ago and now costs a fortune. But here's where it becomes dangerous, because Wave 2 doesn't just hurt the people in debt, it starts to slow spending across the entire economy. When millions of households are redirecting hundreds of dollars a month toward interest payments, that money stops flowing to restaurants, to retail, to local businesses. In those businesses, they start making decisions, hard decisions, the kind that create Wave 3. Wave 3 arrives in the jobs market, and it hasn't fully hit yet, but the leading indicators are unmistakable. Job openings have been declining steadily for a year. The tech sector already went through rounds of historic layoffs. Now it's spreading into finance, media, and retail. The unemployment rate has started ticking up from its historic lows. And here's what makes Wave 3 psychologically brutal. Most people don't see it coming because they still have their job today. Normalcy bias again. I have a job, my colleagues have jobs, my company seems fine. But companies don't announce layoffs in advance. They happen suddenly. And when they do, they hit an economy where personal savings rates have dropped to some of the lowest levels in modern history because people spent down their pandemic savings to maintain a lifestyle that inflation was quietly eroding. Most people won't see this coming. By the time they do, the job market will already have shifted against them. And this is where it gets worse. Wave 4 is the one almost nobody is talking about. It's the housing market, and it's a slow-motion collision that has been building for 2 years. Mortgage rates are sitting near 7%, one of the highest levels in over 2 decades. At 7%, a $400,000 home costs you roughly $2,600 a month just in mortgage payments, before taxes, before insurance, before maintenance. Compare that to 2021, when the same loan at 3% cost you around $1,680 a month. That is nearly $1,000 a month difference, almost $12,000 a year on the same house at the same price.
What does that do? It freezes the market. Sellers who locked in 3% mortgages won't sell because they can't afford to buy again. Buyers can't afford to enter, so inventory stays low, prices stay stubbornly high, and an entire generation of younger Americans is being effectively priced out of building wealth through home ownership, the single most reliable wealth-building mechanism that middle-class America has relied on for generations. That wealth gap doesn't close easily. It compounds across decades. But now, pay close attention because Wave 5 is the one that has the potential to reshape everything. Wave 5 is the macro-level consequence, the convergence point where all the previous waves meet. When consumer spending slows because of debt pressure, when jobs start contracting, when housing freezes, when business investment pulls back because borrowing costs are high, you get a demand collapse. And a demand collapse in an economy still dealing with supply-side pressures and geopolitical instability doesn't just mean a mild slowdown. It creates the conditions for a scenario economists have been quietly raising red flags about: stagflation, slow growth, persistent inflation, rising unemployment, all at the same time. It's the worst possible combination because the traditional tools don't work. You can't cut rates aggressively to stimulate growth without reigniting inflation. You can't keep rates high without crushing an already slowing economy. You get trapped. And the last time America got truly trapped in that scenario, it took nearly a decade and a painful, punishing recession to break out. Now your brain is doing something very specific right now. It's feeling the urge to panic. Maybe to sell investments, maybe to pull back from everything, maybe to just freeze. That is loss aversion at work. Studies from behavioral economics consistently show that the psychological pain of losing a dollar is roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining a dollar. So when people feel threatened financially, they make reactive decisions that feel emotionally right and are statistically wrong. Look at what happened in 2008, in 2020. In every major market downturn in modern history. The people who panicked and sold at the bottom locked in their losses. The people who stayed the course, or better, continued systematically investing, came out significantly ahead. The S&P 500 recovered every single major crash in history. Every single one. The market doesn't care about your fear. It rewards patience and punishes panic. So here's what smart people are actually doing right now. They're not panicking. They're not freezing. They're getting brutally honest about their personal financial exposure. They're looking at their debt, especially high-interest debt, and attacking it with every available resource, because 22% interest is a guaranteed negative return that no investment can reliably beat. They're building their cash buffer, not hoarding cash forever, but creating a real emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses, so that if Wave 3 hits their household, they have runway instead of desperation. They're reviewing their investment strategy, not to exit the market, but to make sure they're not over-concentrated in sectors that are most vulnerable to a prolonged high-rate environment. And critically, they're not making major financial decisions based on fear-driven news cycles. They're making them based on their own financial reality, their own timeline, and their own goals. Here's the most important thing I can leave you with. You are watching this video. That alone puts you ahead of the overwhelming majority of people who are completely unaware that these waves exist, let alone that they're already moving. Awareness is not everything, but it is the beginning of everything. The people who got destroyed in 2008 weren't destroyed because the crisis was unforeseeable. There were economists, analysts, and informed individuals who saw the warning signs clearly. The people who got destroyed were the ones who didn't know what to look for, or who saw it and chose to believe it wouldn't reach them. These waves are real. The data is real. The timeline is unfolding right now, in real time, in the economy you live in every single day. The question is never whether the storm is coming. The question is always whether you decided to pay attention before it arrived.